I'm on a quest to read every Star Wars novel ever written, because regular books are for suckers. Today I'll be talking about The Last Order by Kwame Mbalia. Set just after the ending of The Rise of Skywalker, we're talking weeks, if not days, after, this book follows Finn and Janna as they receive word that a major from within the First Order military may still be alive and active. They set out with a few accomplices to apprehend the major, and that's unfortunately just the framing device. It isn't really the plot of the book at all, and I think that's a shame. When I heard that this was post-Rise of Skywalker, I was kind of excited. I was interested in seeing, if only a little bit, how things are going after the events of the movie. And really, it amounts to a couple of days of mostly insignificant happenstance. Instead, the bulk of this book is about Finn and Janna's time inside the First Order. Finn sets out on a mission where he is being watched over by the Major, and you learn a bit about how First Order training works, you learn a bit about what kind of situation Finn found himself in during the First Order's reign, and meanwhile, Janna is working with her squad, as we saw in the movie, on a separate mission, completely unrelated. She never meets or interacts with Finn, and she's working with an accomplice of the Major called Shroud. I'm going to start off with another negative, but it's fairly small in the grand scheme of things. Because they're still First Order troops, both Finn and Janna are just referred to as numbers, and that does get a little bit tedious after a while. It's not necessarily this book's fault, that's just who they are at this point. You know, Finn explicitly says FN2187 is the only name he ever had, so you just kind of have to listen to a lot of number recitation in this. But all of it's in a story that isn't bad, but it's also nothing mind-blowing. It's a fairly standard heroic adventure. I had a good time getting to know Finn a bit in his time in the First Order. I do think it sets him up as a little bit too proficient a fighter. There are a couple of scenes where it's key that Finn is good at hand-to-hand combat when facing off against people in the First Order. In particular, he enters like a dueling arena against someone else, and that's a bit auspicious for someone who's lost every fight he's been in the movies. Like, I don't know what kind of First Order training regimen they get, but surely that should have let him at least do better against Rey in The Force Awakens, right? But Finn also gets another Stormtrooper to play against, FO7155, and he's a pretty likable character. They had a nice back and forth, and I came to like him a lot by the end of the book. Which I obviously won't get into spoilers, I never do, but clearly, any friendships of Finn's inside the First Order are not going to have the happiest ending, you know? But the same can't be said for Janna and her squad, who were canonically with her in The Rise of Skywalker, and they're all pretty likable. None of them were mind-blowing characters or anything, but there were some charming ones among them. In particular, one of them has the nickname Clamps, and despite thinking every single time they said it of the character from Futurama, I enjoyed him quite a bit. I've mentioned that I always like the wisecracking characters in any group, and he was yet another one that I liked. It's funny, I was just recently talking with someone about Janna, and they said that they didn't like that Janna existed because of the fact that it makes Finn less significant. Finn's role as a traitor, as someone who left the First Order, is lesser because Janna and her crew did it first. And I agree, overall, it was never like a big deal to me, but I think it is a little bit less. This does something kind of interesting with it that I had thought of, and I'm not 100% certain if this is the first thing that's canonized it, but I do like the wrinkle it adds to that sort of conundrum. This is one of those times where it's really hard to elaborate without spoiling things, but just if you've read it, you probably know why it's different, and I like that. Both of the main antagonists of this book are fine. They're nothing to write home about, but they're serviceable. They're, you know, evil, and you want to see them get their comeuppance. I'd put them solidly among the standard Imperial enemy and say good job at being a jerk. And overall, I would say that this book is good. It's not great, there's nothing that really sets it apart from the pack, but there was also nothing that was all that grating about it either. I enjoyed reading it enough. I think that the ending is a little bit flat, but it didn't diminish my reading experience, and overall I'd say I enjoyed this enough. I give it a 5 out of 10.